I stood inside the storage unit longer than was necessary, not because I was confused, but because my brain needed time to align itself with what my eyes were seeing. The space wasn't messy. It wasn't disorganized. It was emptied. The concrete floor still held faint rectangular shadows, dust outlines where 15 metal filing cabinets had stood for years. The cabinets I had personally labeled in thick black marker. Do not touch legal materials. They were gone. The banker's boxes were gone too. 30 of them, uniformly stacked, each one catalogued, indexed, cross-referenced, each one holding pieces of a case that had consumed 3 years of my life. I didn't move at first. I didn't react. That stillness wasn't shock. It was training. People who work inside federal investigations learn early that emotional reactions come later. In the moment, you observe, you inventory, you calculate damage. And the damage in front of me was catastrophic. Looking for your junk? Marcus's voice cut through the silence with casual cruelty. He leaned against the open metal door frame, arms crossed, smiling like he'd just told a harmless joke. Dad finally did something useful for once. I turned slowly, forcing my breathing to stay even. My heart rate had already begun to accelerate, but I kept my face neutral. Where are the files? I asked. Marcus shrugged. Sold them. The word landed heavier than it should have. Sold them where? Well, Dad did, he corrected, unconcerned. Some recycling place. Got like $200. You should be thanking him. He cleared out all that worthless paperwork you've been hoarding. My phone was already in my hand. Muscle memory, habit, instinct. But my voice stayed level. Which recycling place? Marcus laughed. Why do you care? It was just old business crap from that failed company of yours. Mum and Dad were trying to help you move on. You've been obsessing over those boxes for years. It's honestly kind of pathetic. I stepped past him, out of the storage unit, my expression calm even as my mind began running numbers. 3 years of evidence, 15 cabinets, thousands of pages, original source material. I didn't need to raise my voice to feel the weight of what had happened. I need to make a call, I said. Yeah, Marcus called after me. Call your therapist. Tell them your mean family threw away your precious papers. I didn't respond. I walked to my car, got inside, shut the door, and sat there for 2 full seconds before dialing the number I had hoped I would never need. Special Prosecutions Unit, a voice answered. Agent Morrison. This is Sarah Chin, I said. I'm the protected witness in the Thornfield Industries case. Evidence Security Code Delta 773. There was a pause. Miss Chin, he said carefully. What's wrong? My family accessed my storage unit without authorization. Approximately 15 filing cabinets and 30 bankers. Boxes of case materials were removed and sold to a recycling facility this morning. Silence. Then slower. Say that again. The evidence is gone. My father sold it for roughly $200. I heard typing in the background. Rapid. Urgent. Stay exactly where you are, Agent Morrison said. Do not approach your family members. Do not inform them of this call. Units are already being dispatched. The documents represented 3 years of evidence for a federal case involving corporate fraud, environmental violations, and criminal conspiracy, I added calmly. The evidentiary value exceeds $800,000. Yes, he replied quietly. Your family has potentially committed obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, and theft of federal materials. I understand. Where are you now? In my car outside the storage facility. My brother is still here. Keep him there if possible without engaging. Units are 12 minutes out. The line went dead. I lowered the phone and stared through the windshield. Marcus was still leaning against the storage unit, scrolling through his phone. smiling at something on the screen. He had no idea that his life, our family's life, had just fractured beyond repair. The storage unit had been a compromise. When I left Thornfield Industries, my parents had insisted I let go of the past. They thought I was stuck, obsessive, unable to move on. What they didn't know, what I was legally forbidden from telling them, was that I hadn't simply quit. I'd blown the whistle. Thornfield Industries wasn't just unethical, it was criminal. They falsified environmental impact reports to bypass federal regulations. They cooked financial statements to inflate investor confidence. They laundered internal losses through shell subsidiaries. Over $40 million in fraud. I discovered it slowly, painfully, while working as a senior compliance officer. At first, it looked like accounting discrepancies, then internal memos, then emails that contradicted public filings. I documented everything. For 3 years, I collected evidence while still employed. Emails, financial records, meeting minutes, recorded conversations. I wore a wire. I worked with federal investigators in secret. When I finally stepped forward, prosecutors called my documentation exceptional. But building a case of that magnitude takes time. My identity as the whistleblower was sealed. The evidence became classified federal property. I was placed under legal protection, not witness protection in the cinematic sense, but strict confidentiality protocols. I was explicitly instructed not to discuss the case with anyone, including family. To them, I was depressed, burned out, unstable. They thought they were helping. The agents arrived while Marcus was still there. I watched through my rearview mirror as two unmarked vehicles pulled in quietly. No sirens, no drama. Marcus noticed them too late. The first agent approached him casually. The second moved toward the storage office. Marcus's smile faded. I didn't get out of the car. I didn't need to. My phone rang while I was making tea in my apartment later that evening. Miss Chin, Agent Morrison said, we've located the recycling facility. Approximately 40% of the materials processed this morning have already been pulped. I closed my eyes. The digital backups will help, he continued, but original documents carry more weight in court. This significantly compromises the case. I understand. We're obtaining warrants now. For what charges? I asked. Evidence tampering, theft of federal materials, obstruction of justice. They didn't know. That will be for the courts to determine. I set the mug down carefully. At the federal building, recovered files lay spread across long tables. Many were torn, waterlogged, ink smeared beyond legibility. Investigators in gloves photographed each page. This is about 30% of what you provided, the assistant U.S. attorney said quietly. The rest is unrecoverable. 3 years of my life reduced to pulp. Then came the second blow. Your father accessed your apartment last week, she continued. Removed additional boxes from your home office. I thought back to the previous week. A filing cabinet that felt lighter. A shelf that looked different. I had dismissed it. I shouldn't have. This wasn't a single mistake, she said gently. This was repeated action. My father was arrested that night. My brother followed. My mother screamed into the phone. My sister accused me of destroying the family. Then Thornfield Industries made their move. They filed an emergency motion to dismiss, citing evidence spoliation and chain of custody violations. They painted me as unstable, vindictive, a disgruntled employee fabricating records. They contacted my sister. She talked. And for a moment the narrative almost worked. And then the footage surfaced. It didn't come from us. It came from the recycling facility itself. Security cameras, mounted high above the sorting floor, had captured everything in brutal clarity. My father standing beside an industrial shredder. pointing deliberately at specific bankers' boxes, laughing as workers fed them into the machine. "She thanked me later," he said on the audio, his voice casual, almost proud. The clip ran on every major network within 24 hours. Whatever sympathy the public had briefly felt evaporated overnight. This was no longer a story about an overreaching government or a confused family man trying to help his daughter. This was a story about deliberate destruction of federal evidence. The narrative flipped violently. Headlines changed tone. From father arrested for helping daughter clean storage unit, to federal evidence destroyed in apparent obstruction of $40 million fraud case. The Thornfield Industries legal team went silent. Their emergency motion to dismiss collapsed under its own weight. You can argue chain of custody. You can argue intent. But you cannot argue against video evidence of a man intentionally destroying labeled legal materials while joking about it. The federal response escalated immediately. What had been a single obstruction charge became a cascade. Burglary, identity fraud, conspiracy, interference with a protected witness. Marcus was the first to fold. Faced with surveillance footage, phone records, and his own text messages, he took a plea deal within 48 hours. 6 months in minimum security, 3 years probation, a $25,000 fine. He testified that my father had instructed him to obtain a spare key from the storage company by impersonating me over the phone. That added another charge. My mother wasn't charged criminally, but the civil consequences were unavoidable. The federal government filed suit to recover investigative losses tied to the destroyed evidence. $823,000. She didn't have it. A house was surrendered. Retirement accounts liquidated. By the time the arraignment came, my family no longer looked like a family. They looked like defendants orbiting the same collapse. I attended the trial, not because I was required to, because I needed to see it. I sat in the witness gallery, sunglasses low, watching my father stand before the judge in an orange jumpsuit that didn't quite fit his frame. He looked smaller, not frail, just diminished. The defense strategy was simple and desperate. Intent. They argued he was a father acting out of concern, not malice. That he believed I was mentally unwell, hoarding paperwork as a symptom of depression. That he was trying to help me move on. When I took the stand, the courtroom was silent. "Miss Chin," the defense attorney asked, "did you ever explicitly tell your father that the materials in your storage unit were federal evidence?" I told him they were legal materials that could not be touched. "But did you use the words federal evidence?" "No," I said. "I was legally prohibited from disclosing details of the case. So your father had no way of knowing." "The boxes were labeled," I interrupted calmly. "The unit was locked. He accessed it without authorization. He entered my apartment without permission and removed additional materials." The prosecutor stood. "Objection. Sustained," the judge said sharply. The defense faltered after that. Facts don't bend for intention. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. Guilty on all counts. Sentencing came 2 months later. I didn't attend. I didn't need to. The sentence was 12 years. Less than the maximum. More than enough. 5 years for evidence tampering. 4 for obstruction. 2 for theft of federal materials. 1 for burglary. Consecutive. The judge's statement was unambiguous. "You did not discard clutter," she said. "You systematically destroyed evidence in a major federal investigation, compromised a protected witness, and jeopardized accountability for corporate crimes affecting millions. This sentence reflects the severity of your actions." My father didn't look at me as he was led away. I didn't look back. The Thornfield case survived. Barely. Digital backups. Secondary witnesses. Forensic accounting. The trial lasted 8 months. The CEO received 22 years. The CFO 15. 6 executives received sentences ranging from 3 to 10 years. Thornfield Industries paid $78 million in fines and restitution. The case became a benchmark for corporate accountability. I received a Whistleblower Award. $3.2 million. 15% of recovered funds. I used part of it to quietly pay Marcus's legal fees. He never acknowledged it. Life afterward was quieter. Not peaceful. Just quiet. My mother lives in a small apartment now, working part-time at a grocery store. She visits my father every other week at a federal facility 3 hours away. Once, over coffee, she said softly, "He really thought he was helping you." "I know," I said. "Does that matter?" I thought about that question longer than I should have. "It matters," I said finally. "But it doesn't change what happened." She nodded. "He asks about you every visit. Tell him I'm fine." She did. My sister hasn't spoken to me since. Last I heard, she was writing a book about government overreach and families destroyed by whistleblower culture. Marcus texts occasionally. Short. Bitter. Hope it was worth it. I never reply. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the boxes. About 3 years of my life fed into an industrial shredder because someone decided they knew better than me, because they thought paperwork was junk, because they believed intent outweighed consequence. Justice doesn't care about intention. It doesn't care about family dinners or fathers who want their daughters to move on. Justice cares about evidence. And I protected it the only way I could. I drive past the old storage facility sometimes, past the recycling center, past the landmarks of a life split cleanly into before and after. The evidence was destroyed. The case was won. My family was shattered. All of those things are true. And all of them trace back to a single phone call I made sitting in my car, staring at an empty storage unit, choosing duty over blood. Justice, it turns out, is not clean. It is not kind. It is simply final.